Is it running? Looks good. Good day. My name is Martin Schweiger, and I'm a patent attorney and powerlifter in Singapore. Today is the 24th of June 2025, and I take you with me on my daily walk. I try to do at minimum 7,000 steps a day, and I do this since 1.5 years ago, after my metabolic syndrome was discovered. And it helped me a lot. I have lost, I would say, 30 kg body weight over that time. Yeah, I'm in Singapore, and I had a spectacular weekend, but before I start, I wanted to do two things. Number one, people ask me, what is that black hairy thingy here? That's my microphone. And it's under a hairy cover so that the wind doesn't generate noise. So it's wireless, so it transmits from here to the phone quite good, I believe. Yeah. Then another thing is, when I say my metabolic syndrome was discovered, I had a funny encounter, because maybe 3 months back or so, I took a DNA test, and with my DNA test comes a consulting session with a doctor, medical doctor, that knows about genetics and epigenetics, and yeah, so it so happened that when I was in KL over the past weekend, because today is Tuesday, my water fasting day, I went to KL for my health checkup and also to see clients. And it so happened that I had this talk with this medical doctor, and it was quite interesting. Because, of course, did I do my own research, and I have programmed a bot to do genetics, my custom GPT. So I knew pretty well what to expect, but I still wanted to hear what this doctor has to say. And what she did was essentially compare my DNA result and the cancer and illness markers in the DNA with actual symptoms that I may have or not. So, and what I told her was that, yeah, I have metabolic syndrome. And then she laughed and she said, that's not an illness. I said, oh, why that? I said, because I would say the majority or more than half of the people have metabolic syndrome. And that's not a disease then anymore, if everybody has it. And I was wondering, what, is this normal? And in very short words, this expresses what I have feared already. The doctors have given up in treating the root cause. And the root cause being that our metabolism is out of balance. And yeah, she wanted to know how I treated it, because she thought, oh, are you already on statins and other stuff, Ozempic and so? I said, no, I'm healing myself without any pharmaceuticals. And she asked, is it successful? And I said, yeah, very successful. And yeah, the result of my examination in Kuala Lumpur was that my body improved further. So just a few spectacular results. And my testosterone levels, which were very low 1.5 years ago, something. Actually, I'm not an expert into that, but the testosterone is measured from 0 to a 2-digit value, maybe 30 or 40 or so. And when I was measured 1.5 years ago, then my testosterone level was very low, something like 7 or so. And then the doctor said, oh, why don't we give you testosterone? And I was reluctant, because testosterone is a doping substance, and I'm a powerlifter, and powerlifting and doping don't go well. But okay, doctor says it's good, so he gave me a testosterone injection. It was quite expensive, by the way. And he told me to come back after 3 months. And then I was reading up of the testosterone and so, and then I found that testosterone can be improved by natural ways, which means change your lifestyle, and the food intake is important. So, and what I can tell you is, after doing this for 1 year, which means in January, I was for a checkup in Shanghai. They measured my testosterone. It went up from 7-ish to 12-ish, which is already in the normal area. And from January until today, my testosterone went further up to now 15. And all that without any intake, artificial. So, yeah. And I would say testosterone, lack of testosterone is a sign of metabolic syndrome. And it's an illness, because it's not normal. And you can improve it in a natural way with your food and your lifestyle, like daily walking. I would say 10,000 steps. Then, I mean, I do it anyway. Strength training 2 or 3 times a week with heavy weights, not just movement therapy. And yeah, that will help. Okay, so yeah, then this doctor was weird. She wanted to convince me that I should switch my weekly fasting to a quarterly fasting for more than a day. I mean, you know what I do, right? On Tuesday, I do water fasting, which is essentially drinking only water, tea, coffee, and not even lemon in my water. Today I had a little bit of vinegar in my water, just for making my stomach a bit sour. And I also, on Tuesday, I'm taking my supplements. I have quite a number of supplements. And and there are some that are liquid, like silica and vitamin D, which comes with vitamin K. And then I have 2 powders, which is NMN, and the other one is some L-citrulline for my nitric oxide level in the blood. So these 2 powders I mix with the vitamin D, and then I put some water and then some vinegar for the environment, but that's not considered breaking fast. So, yeah. And then this doctor also, the one with the DNA test, asked all the stuff. I mean, what surprised me, among others, that she was telling me that I should stop my weekly fasting. But I believe it's good, because that surprised me. She never asked me how I measure my fasting. Is she thinking that I'm just fasting for the sake of fasting? Probably, because she never asked me what I measure. And I don't do anything for my health if I cannot measure the success. And in my case, the fasting is done such that I bring my body into a ketonic state. And I can measure that with 3 different measurements. The first one would be ketones in my urine. The second, ketones in my blood. And the third would be acetone in my breath. It's measured in ppm. And all 3 are useful. And yeah, also what I found surprising is that she said, when she asked me, how did you lose your weight? I mean, I lost a lot. I came from 133 and I'm now at 103 or so, 103-ish at the end of my fasting days. But without emptying my gut, my bowels, and without lowering the water content of my body by sauna also, which we do for the purpose of preparing. So I would say from coming weekend onwards, I'm now, today is the 24th. My competition is on the 13th, so I have "19 days out of the competition." So I would say from coming weekend onwards, I need to prepare. And I would come with sauna and also lowering the water content, And of course, I want to build up the creatinine in my body. That would bring my body weight up 1 kg or 1.5, but bring extra regenerative energy, because then the ATP can regenerate from the creatine. Yeah, and of course I've measured all my lab values for that. So I would call this natural expansion of fitness that I do before my powerlifting competitions. And try to be below 105. I mean, I'm losing weight anyway, you know, so my long-term goal is something like 80 kg, so that I can compete in the 83 weight class, 83 kg weight class. But I believe I'm 2 or 3 years out from that goal. So this doctor just asked, what did you do for losing weight? And I thought to myself, hey, you don't know what I did for losing my weight. But so I said, then she asked for how to describe my journey. It's 1.5 years, lifestyle change, complete. So, because I was silent, she said, so does it did it come from walking? And I just said yes, hoping that she would give up asking. And then she said, but you know, walking is not enough. Can you do something like inclined walking on a stepper or on a treadmill, or then carry some weight? And you know what? I have seriously thought about that. Taking a backpack and putting a 25 kg plate inside from the gym. Yeah. There are also weight vests sold. That makes it more convenient. But the problem is we live in Singapore and it's hot, and if you wear a vest or backpack, it's hot. But on the other hand, yeah, that would help. And also build muscles. But I tell you what is the real source of losing weight. I have a lot of visceral fat built up over the years, and that's also a problem because that causes the metabolic syndrome, because the fat so close to your organs, visceral, inside the belly, is number one, directly included into the metabolism, because the liver and the hormones would take it as some resource or storage that has to be included in the control circle. And number two, the visceral fat is a source of inflammation. And inflammation is what causes plaque in arteries and other stuff. I mean, I'm very lucky. I mean, the blood test shows that, because there's a measurement for inflammation in the body. A very old one is in German, I only know the German word is Blutsenkung. Blutsenkung is how the particles in the blood separate from the serum, and you measure it in so you collect some blood, put it in a glass and measure over time how much liquid is shown above the red particles. Ideally it's 0, but when it's not 0, this is a sign that something is wrong in the body. There's some inflammation. Of course, it costs a lot of time, and no doctor wants that. So they have developed a test which is called CRP. And I remember when I was diagnosed with metabolic syndrome 1.5 years ago, my CRP value was something like 7 or 6.5. And then it fell to 2.5 after 1 year, which means 6 months ago. And now I'm down to 1 point something, maybe 1.4, 1.5. And you're considered to be healthy if you get below 1.0. So you know my goal? Get below 1.0, right? So that motivates me. And again, I measure, and I only do what I can measure. So this doctor, instead of finding out what fat I need to lose and then adjusting the measurements or the measures to do so, she just told me, get more resistance in your, in other words, more resistance in your walking, inclined walking. Yeah, but I'm in Singapore, look around you, it's all flat. I could walk up some stairs, that would work, yeah, like this here. But then the question is rather, why not going after the visceral fat directly? And I believe that the best way to do so is get yourself in ketonic mode and stay there and activate some genes. Ketonic mode can be achieved in 2 ways. Either you only eat keto, which means no carbs, which I mostly do. I leave the carbs away if I can. But then you have always carbs. They are in yogurt, in fruits, in vegetables, in roots. My beetroot has carbohydrates. So I believe the other way is the better one, and this is through fasting. And that also increases your metabolic flexibility. And this doctor never spoke about metabolic flexibility. Just, she said, stop your weekly water fasting. She didn't even ask further. If she only knew that I also do dry fasting on the Wednesday, every Wednesday. So the water fasting, 24 hours, is followed by dry fasting. And I measure, so I'm sure I'm in ketonic mode. I can see that my ketones in the blood max on the dry fasting day in the morning, and then they flatten out because the body produces less ketones on the dry fasting day towards the end. But still is in ketonic mode because my acetone level in the breath would increase on the second day. I didn't measure today, but my guess is now maybe I'm now 13, 14 hours into my water fasting, and my ketones 0.3, 0.4, not really elevated. With my blood ketones, there may be some, very little ketones in my urine, and the the breath analyzer would show a value of maybe 15 to 20 ppm. So tomorrow at the same time, I'm through the maximum of my blood ketones, that max at about 2.2 or something. The urine would show ketones. And the breath analyzer would increase over the entire day tomorrow until I break fast, until it reaches values of even 80s and 90s I have seen. What I have also seen is that the ketones in the urine if I do my fasting over an extended period of time, my body would not produce so many ketones that they spill over into the urine anymore. That's a sign of metabolic flexibility. So the body would know how many ketones are needed for fueling the body. So I believe the right answer for the doctor would be to refer to ketonic mode, because without converting body fat into ketones, which is done by the liver mostly, you will not lose that body fat. You cannot convert it into muscles, because these are two different types of cells. And I believe that autophagy plays an important role, because once the fat is burned, then there's cellular material, like the skin, is too large, and in order to build that one back, you need to get into autophagy, and all that can only be achieved by fasting, and I mean by regular fasting, and not only by fasting every 3 months. So I found that efficient. Then another surprising result of the laboratory test on the weekend in KL was that my vitamin D was very low. First I thought it's high because it's something like 119, but a friend of mine told me, highlighted to me that there are 2 units, and I have confused the one unit with the other unit. The one unit is measured in nanogram per milliliter, and the other one is measured in millimole per liter. And yeah, you must be careful when you compare. The lower one is nanogram per milliliter, and I posted an article on my website, iplawyertools.com, iplawyertools.com, about my vitamin D journey, and I realized that I've undersupplied my body with vitamin D, and now I need. I mean, it's an interesting experiment because I have oversupplied for a very short time last year. I took up to, I believe, 22,000 units per day last year for a period of 3 weeks or so. And then I lowered this dosage to 2,000 after I had this result this year in January. It was 180, but again, the millimole per liter, not the nanogram per milliliter. So, while in January, the value was then something like 90 nanogram per milliliter, which was very, very nice. Should closer be to 100. So I should have maintained the 5,000 IUs that I took for the second half of last year. I mean, 5,000 units per day, and then measure again. But I've reduced to 2,000, and now I'm really down to 44 nanograms per milliliter, which is clearly not enough. Should be above 50. So, consequence, I go back to 15,000 per day for 6 months. And I measure again in around Christmas. I will not die from this, but it's interesting. So others can follow and also do the same what I did. Because I believe it's really not dangerous. You need maybe 4 or 5 measurements over a period of time of 2 years, plus the vitamin D, plus the magnesium, plus the vitamin K2, plus the walking in the sun, and then you're good and you can find out what is your optimal dose. And after that you measure maybe once a year or every 2 years. Once a year is good because the vitamin D would also depend on the body weight, and if body weight changes, and then the vitamin D will change. And yeah, as I know, I have a lot of visceral fat. My guess is that I have something like 15 kg visceral fat. It's fat inside the belly, and that must go. So, if this doctor watches, then I had expected that you address my visceral fat, then ketosis for fat loss, and autophagy for other healthy effects. And dry fasting, especially because dry fasting triggers mechanisms. There are special genes in the body that signal the body that this is a dry fasting period. And the funny thing is that even contact of your skin with water would signal the body that it's not a dry fasting anymore. So dry fasting means really no water to the body. Yeah, that another thing is, a good thing is, I mean, as the doctor who evaluated my DNA, she of course needs to think about what is the meaning of DNA and what is the body doing. And so there are two different ways to see the body. The first way is more like scholar medicine. It's more like a machine that consists of independent parts, more or less. And if something doesn't work, then you replace the part. But being a vehicle repair mechanic by training myself, I can say that even we repair mechanics do not think like that when it comes to combustion engines. And I believe a combustion engine, internal combustion engine, is very similar to the human body when it comes to metabolism, because it's all about producing energy. The ultimate goal is that you need energy mainly for running your brain and for flexing your muscles, and also for maintaining the structural unity of the body, joints and bones and ligaments. And so it's all about energy. And you win the energy from food. Similar, and the air, of course, what you breathe. Similar to an internal combustion engine that uses fuel, a combustible fuel, plus the air, as oxygen in the air. So, repair mechanics and engineers who build vehicles with combustion engines have a good idea of how a complicated system works. And I believe we can easily apply what we have learned with internal combustion engines to the human body. Especially when we base what we think on measurements. That's where I'm coming from. So the other way of looking at it, and I believe this doctor has understood, the human genome is not program that is individual for each human, and then would just run like that as you are born. It clearly can parts of the genome be activated or deactivated. And the activation and deactivation makes all the difference. There's a good example found in a starting strength book. The starting strength for people above 50 or something like that. And it starts, Sully, the starting strength, Dr. Sullivan, I forgot his name, they all call him Sully. And he has written this book. And there's an example with the will and the fill. And both are, that they are siblings. And they are, what is this, the English word for that? I never use this word, so I don't have it. It means they look the same. And they are genetically